The desert wind screamed across the red plains of planet Torvac 7. Sharp dust cut through the sky like tiny blades, making every breath feel like sandpaper in the throat. Soldiers ran. Alien warriors, human soldiers. Screams echoed. Explosions lit up the clouds. The war had started without warning. Among the chaos, a lone human stood still. He didn't flinch when a plasma round exploded nearby. He didn't look back when others shouted for him to retreat. His name was Mason Thorne, a mechanic by training, a fighter by accident. His eyes were calm, sharp, glowing like fire under the helmet visor, but his gaze, it was something else. Cold, unshaken, pure steel. Everyone called it the look of death. Across the battlefield, a new enemy appeared, a monster not yet seen before by any human or alien soldier. It was not just big, it was massive, 10 feet tall, covered in black armored plates. Its 6 arms carried weapons shaped like living creatures, breathing steam and growling like wolves. Its name, shouted in fear by the alien troops, was Kralvuan, a living weapon bred in the deep pits of the Zarn Empire. Not even tanks had slowed it down before. But Mason didn't move. Nearby, hiding in the broken shell of a downed alien ship, a young alien girl watched him with wide silver eyes. Her name was Lissa. She was from the noble Talrune bloodline. She had trained all her life for war, yet now she found herself clutching her weapon like a child holds a broken toy. She had seen her entire squad wiped out in seconds. She had seen generals run. And now she saw him, the human who refused to move. The monster roared. Its breath melted the sand beneath it. Its claws cracked the metal hulls of battle mechs. Soldiers scattered like insects before it, but Mason, he stood firm. Then the monster saw him. Kralvuan stopped mid-charge. Its eyes glowing red like burning coals locked onto Mason. The battlefield fell strangely silent for a moment. Even gunfire slowed. Mason took one slow step forward. His boots sank into the soft red soil. The monster growled low, confused. Then it roared again, louder. This time, a sound meant to break bones and hearts. But Mason kept walking slowly, steadily, like the roar meant nothing. Why is he not running? Lissa whispered, peeking through the broken ship's cracks. Her heartbeat raced in her throat. Another step. Mason stared into the monster's eyes, and the monster froze. Its many limbs twitched. Its breath slowed. It stared deep into Mason's eyes, as if it saw something it could not understand. Then it bowed. Not just lowered its head, but bowed. A deep, slow motion. A sign of respect? Or fear? The battlefield gasped. The monster turned. It walked away. Lissa's weapon slipped from her hand. Silence held the air. Then came the sound of boots crunching sand. Mason turned and walked away like nothing happened. Soldiers stared. No one spoke. Later that night, in a temporary outpost made from scorched metal and burned supplies, Lissa stood in front of Mason. She couldn't speak for a long time. She just looked at him, studied his face, tried to understand what had happened. "What did you do to it?" she finally asked. Mason looked at her. "I just looked. Everyone was scared. Even my commander ran. I wasn't." "But why?" she asked, confused. "You didn't even raise a weapon." Mason picked up a cracked piece of armor and began cleaning it. "Sometimes," he said calmly, "fear is stronger than any weapon. And sometimes the monster knows when it's no longer the strongest thing in the room." Lissa stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. She had been trained to believe that humans were weak, soft, and emotional, that they needed machines to survive. But this man, this human, the monster had bowed to him. And now she understood why no one dared meet his eyes. Asterisk, that night, the camp was full of whispers. Every tent, every corner, Every soldier was talking about what they had seen, about the monster, about the human who made it bow. They didn't say Mason's name. They just called him the Gaze. Some feared him. Others respected him. A few tried to stay far from him, as if his eyes could burn their souls. Mason didn't speak much. He only sat by the small fire near his half-dismantled rifle and cleaned parts that didn't need cleaning. Lissa watched him again. She couldn't. She had seen fear in many forms, beasts, warships, executioners, but never like this. Never from a look. She walked up to him quietly. "You're repairing that gun, but you didn't even use it earlier." He glanced up. Sometimes a gun makes noise, but silence leaves a deeper scar. Lissa didn't understand, but she nodded. "Are you afraid of me?" Mason asked. She didn't answer. "Not right away." "No," she said finally. "I'm afraid of not understanding you." He raised an eyebrow. That was the closest thing to a smile she had seen on his face. Suddenly, a scout burst through the tent flap. His armor was scorched, helmet cracked, breathing hard. "Another monster," he gasped. 2 miles east. It tore through the second company. It's bigger. And it's not alone. Everyone jumped to their feet. Panic spread fast. Officers barked orders. Troops grabbed weapons. The camp began to move, but Mason didn't get up. Lissa turned to him. "You're not coming?" He looked up at her, calm as always. "Do you think I need to?" She narrowed her eyes. "You think it'll bow too?" "No," he said slowly. "I think it'll fight. That's why I'm saving my strength." "What does that mean?" He stood, finally. His movements were slow, almost lazy, but there was power in them. "It means it's not about fear anymore. It's about dominance." Lissa followed him through the tents as he walked straight to the command unit. Inside, high-ranking alien officers were shouting over each other. "It crushed our tanks. It's not responding to plasma rounds. We need air support." Mason stepped inside and the noise dropped. "Where is it now?" he asked. General Torvik, a towering alien with gray horns, turned sharply. You think your stare works on all beasts? This is no show for a lone human." Mason walked up to the holotable, pointed to the monster's last known location, and said, "I'll go? Alone?" The general laughed. Lissa stepped forward. "I'll go with him." The room froze. Torvik's eyes narrowed. "You are noble born. You are not a scout. You are not expendable." Lissa didn't blink. "I saw what he did. I trust him." After a long pause, the general waved them away. "Fine, go die together." An hour later, under the twin moons of Torvak 7, Mason and Lissa crossed the ash fields. The ground was full of bones and broken steel. The wind carried a low, distant growl. "There's something wrong," Lissa whispered. "I feel it." "You should," Mason said. "It's not afraid of us." They reached the ruins of a fallen outpost. Scorch marks covered the walls. Claw marks tore through alloy doors. Blood soaked the sand. Then they heard it. A heavy breath. Wet and deep. From the shadows, it stepped out. This one was larger than Kralvuan, taller, thicker. Its hide was dark blue, glowing with red veins. It had 4 burning eyes and 6 legs that dug into the rock like drills. It didn't charge. It watched. Mason met its gaze. For the first time, Lissa saw something new. His fists clenched. His jaw tightened. This one was different. The creature let out a screech and stepped closer. Lissa raised her rifle. "No," Mason said calmly. "Don't shoot. It'll make it worse." The creature circled them. Its nostrils flared. It seemed to study Mason. Then it laughed. A low, gurgling laugh. Lissa froze. It laughed? "Not all monsters are beasts," Mason whispered. "Some are waiting." Waiting for what, Lissa didn't know. But the way it stared at Mason, it wasn't afraid. It was curious. Then it spoke. Not in words, but in mind speech, raw thoughts entering both their heads. You are the broken one who commands fear. I want to see your soul crack. Lissa gasped. She stumbled back. But Mason took one step forward and said nothing. The game had changed, and this monster did not plan to bow. The monster circled slowly, its claws scraping across stone, leaving behind deep cuts like knives through butter. Mason stood in front of it, still and unblinking. Lissa stood behind him, her weapon lowered but her body tense, ready to react. Monster's thoughts pushed into their minds again. You fear nothing. Why? Mason didn't answer with words. He just stared into the four glowing eyes. The creature tilted its massive head. Are you broken or perfect? Lissa felt cold. Sweat on her back. This monster was unlike anything they'd seen. It wasn't just brute force. It thought. It played with its prey. The silence dragged on, and Mason finally spoke. You bow to no one. The creature made a strange clicking sound, its version of laughter. Correct. I am the last of the deep brood. I crushed kings. I drank fire. But I want to know, what are you, human? Mason didn't speak again. He just took another slow step forward. Lissa felt her heart stop. The monster crouched slightly, ready to pounce but Mason raised a hand not to attack, but to remove something from his wrist. A small, round tag. It blinked blue, then turned off. What did you do? Lissa asked. No. Signals. No backup. Just me in it now, Mason said calmly. The monster stopped, then lunged. Lissa screamed. It was too fast, but Mason moved faster. He ducked low, twisted, and slid between the monster's legs. As the beast turned, Mason was already on its back, holding tight to the ridged spine. He didn't have a weapon. He just placed his hand flat on the creature's neck and stared. The monster shrieked, not in pain, but something else. It shook violently, trying to throw him off. But Mason held on. The creature's thoughts surged in panic. Why are you not afraid? Why? Because I've already seen worse, Mason whispered. Memories flashed. Not from the monster, but from Mason. Lissa saw them too. Fire, screams, a broken earth city, a child under rubble, a hand reaching for help. And then nothing. Mason had survived something worse than monsters. The creature's legs buckled. It fell to the ground with a thunderous thud. Still breathing. Still alive. But it stopped fighting. Lissa ran to Mason as he slid off the creature's back. His hands were shaking slightly, but his eyes were the same sharp and clear. The monster spoke once more. You win, but I will not bow. I will follow. What? Lissa asked, breathless. The monster stood again, slower now. Not as a threat, but like a beast waiting for a command. It lowered its head, not in submission, but in respect. Mason looked at it, then at Lissa. It knows now. I'm not its enemy. I'm its challenge. Lissa stared at the massive creature. It had destroyed tanks, eaten soldiers, but now it followed a human. What did you show it? She asked. Mason looked away. The thing even monsters fear. They returned to camp before sunrise. The outpost guards raised their weapons in panic as they saw the huge beast walking behind them. Stand down, Lissa shouted. It's with us. General Torvik came forward, wide-eyed. You brought it here? You let it live? It's not here to kill, Mason replied. It's here to understand. The general laughed in disbelief. You expect us to believe that? The monster moved forward. The soldiers aimed their rifles, but the beast spoke to them all, its voice entering every mind in the camp. I do not bow to power. I follow truth. And this human carries more truth than your entire army. The camp fell silent. Lissa stepped forward. You wanted answers, General? Here's one. We've been fighting with guns and ships. He's been fighting with something else. General Torvik scowled. What is he then? A weapon? No, Lissa said quietly. He's the reason monsters stop. That night, no one slept. The monsters stayed at the edge of the camp, like a silent guardian, and Mason, sitting beside the fire, looked into the flames as if remembering a world no one else could see. Lissa sat beside him. What really happened? To you, Mason? He didn't answer, but in his silence she began to understand this man was not fearless. He was broken, but his broken pieces scared even monsters. Asterisk. The sun rose over the broken land of Torvak 7. Its pale light did little to warm the camp. Soldiers kept their distance from the edge where the monster now rested like a mountain. It didn't move. It didn't growl. But no one dared turn their back to it, except one man. Mason sat near it, legs crossed, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Lissa stood nearby, watching him and the beast with confusion and awe. How could this monster, this destroyer of armies, sit like a trained dog in front of a quiet human? The others didn't understand. They didn't even try. But Lissa wanted to know. She needed to know that she approached him again. Why is it still here? Mason opened his eyes. Because it wants to learn. Learn what? It's a killer. A beast. No, Mason said softly. It was made to kill. That's different. He stood up and walked toward the creature. It lowered its head just slightly, showing it acknowledged him. I think, Mason said, this thing was waiting for someone it couldn't scare. Lissa frowned. And that someone is you? Mason didn't answer. He placed a hand gently on the side of the beast's neck. It was never about fear. It was about finding something real in a galaxy full of lies. The monster's voice returned in their minds. I was created by hands that only knew war. My mind was filled with pain. My eyes only saw targets. But you, human, you showed me something strange. A soul with no light left, yet it walks. Why? Lissa was stunned. Mason looked at the beast and replied, because light never saved me, but walking forward did. The words felt heavy. Even Lissa felt a weight press against her chest. Later that day, while the monster slept, Lissa pulled Mason aside. You speak like someone who's already died once, she said. He didn't smile. He didn't deny it. She looked him in the eyes. Tell me. He hesitated. Then, for the first time, he opened up. I was on Earth when it fell, he said. Not the whole planet. Just the place I called home. Lissa listened closely. The sky turned black from bombs. My city became ash. I dug through rubble with my hands. I found people. Pieces of people. And my sister. She was just a child. He stopped speaking. His jaw clenched. She didn't make it. Lissa lowered her head. I'm sorry. I carried her body through fire, not to save her. Just so she wouldn't burn alone. Lissa's breath caught. That day, Mason said, something broke inside me. I didn't feel pain anymore. Or fear. Just silence. I kept walking because I didn't know what else to do. And now? She whispered. Now I still walk, he replied. But when monsters look into my eyes, they don't see weakness. They see that silence. Lissa stepped closer. You're not empty. You're still human. No, Mason said. I'm only human. That's what makes it powerful. Before she could speak again, alarms rang through the camp. A scout ship crashed nearby. Flames lit the sky. Soldiers ran to the site. Lissa and Mason followed. The wreck was smoking. A few wounded soldiers crawled out, but what came next shocked everyone. Another monster. Not like the one from before, This one was smaller, sleeker, but faster. It leapt from the ship's cargo hold and tore through 2 guards in seconds. Open fire. Someone shouted. Blaster rounds lit up the air. But the creature dodged them, jumping high and disappearing into the cliffs. Lissa turned to Mason. More of them? He looked at the wreck and narrowed his eyes. No, that one didn't crash. It was sent. Why? To test our monster. He said, someone's watching. Someone's measuring. Measuring what? He looked toward the cliffs. To see if I can tame more. That night, the camp was on high alert. The monster, the original one, was quiet, but its eyes glowed slightly as if it too had sensed danger. Lissa approached Mason again. If they're testing you, what happens when you pass? He looked at her. Then they'll send something. I can't stop. You're not afraid? He looked toward the stars. No, he said. I'm ready. The stars over Torvac 7 blinked softly, hiding secrets behind their light. Inside the command tent, silence filled the air. Mason stood over the holographic map, studying it without speaking. Lissa watched him. She could tell something had changed in his expression. His calm wasn't calm anymore. It was too quiet. Like a storm was hiding beneath it. The earlier had been too planned. Too sharp. The fast monster didn't strike wildly. It targeted the fuel storage, the communication relay, the medical. Tense. That wasn't a wild beast. It was trained. It wasn't here for destruction, Mason finally said. It was watching us. Testing us. Testing you, Lissa corrected. He didn't deny it. She stepped closer. You said someone is. Watching. Who? He turned toward her slowly. Whoever made the monsters. Lissa frowned. We thought the Zarn Empire bred them. They did, Mason said. But someone else is pulling the strings now. He walked outside into the night. The giant monster, silent follower, stood like a shadow at the edge of the camp, glowing faintly in the darkness. It hadn't moved much, only staring at the stars above. Mason walked up to it. Are you still with me? He asked. The monster answered in mind speech. I hear voices. Not yours. They whisper in my skull. They tell me to leave you. To return. To forget. Mason narrowed his eyes. Do you want to forget? No. I want to remember what I was before. They filled me with commands. You were alive, Mason said. Not just a weapon. The monster's breath deepened. Then why do I feel a pull? Like chains I can't see? Lissa, who had followed quietly, now stepped forward. Maybe they didn't just build your body. Maybe they built your mind too. Mason looked at her. What if it's not just monsters they're building? What? If it's something bigger? She tilted her head. What are you thinking? He stared at the stars. A test. A long one. Across worlds. Maybe they're not trying to destroy anything. Maybe they're searching for something. Like what? She asked. A reaction. Suddenly, the monster growled low. Not in anger, but warning. They all turned toward the far cliffs. Red lights began to blink. Dozens of them. Then, movement. Silhouettes emerged, tall, thin figures. Walking in straight lines, wearing long cloaks, their faces hidden. They didn't carry weapons, but they moved like they didn't need any. Mason narrowed his eyes. Observers. Lissa had never seen beings like this. One of them stepped forward and stopped a few meters away. When it spoke, the voice was smooth, but cold. You are human Mason Thorne. You have passed the first 3 stages. The creature follows you. The others fear you. We are pleased. Lissa stood beside him. Who are you? We are the makers, the voice said. Long before your empires, we created balance through conflict. Chaos reveals truth. Pain reveals potential. Mason stepped forward. You're behind the war? No, the voice replied. We are the war. We design it, shape it, feed it, to see what rises from it. You're using living beings like experiments. We use everyone, the voice said calmly. But you, human, are unique. The other figures stepped aside. Behind them stood another monster. Bigger than all before, shining black armor, 8 limbs, glowing eyes of gold. It was still like a statue made of nightmares. Mason stared at it. This one, the voice said, has never bowed. It has never followed. It only kills. Lissa stepped closer. You want him to face it? We want to see what breaks first, the voice said. The beast's hunger or the human silence. Mason stared at the golden-eyed monster, then at the one behind him, the first creature who now trembled slightly. You're testing me, Mason said. No, the voice whispered. We are unveiling you. The monster stepped forward. The ground shook. Even the stars above seemed to dim. Mason didn't flinch, but Lissa grabbed his arm. Don't do this alone. He looked at her hand, then into her eyes. You followed? Me when no one else did, he said softly. So now I'm not alone. She nodded. The monster roared, and Mason stared back. The monster stepped forward. Its 8 limbs moved like giant knives slicing through smoke. Each step cracked the earth. Its golden eyes locked on Mason, not with fear, not with respect, just hunger. Pure, silent hunger. The makers watched without emotion. Dozens of tall figures stood still like statues, their glowing masks reflecting the firelight. Lissa felt her throat tighten. The creature wasn't roaring like the others. It didn't threaten. It didn't posture. It knew it would win. And yet Mason walked forward, one slow step at a time. The first monster, the one who had followed Mason for days, growled, low and sad. It knew what this new creature was. A destroyer. A god among beasts, Lissa whispered. You don't have to do this. Let the army handle it. Mason shook his head. They'll die. This thing isn't here for war. It's here for me. He took off his jacket. His chest was covered in scars, long, deep ones that looked burned into his skin. Lissa had never seen a body so marked, so silent in its pain. Mason stepped into the circle, facing the golden-eyed monster alone. The creature moved like lightning. It lunged, faster than thought. But Mason ducked, rolled, came up behind it. No weapon. Just focus. The monster spun and swung a limb. One of its claws struck his shoulder and tore flesh. Blood sprayed the ground. Lissa gasped. Mason, but he didn't scream. He didn't even fall. He stood, face pale, but eyes glowing with fury. Monster stopped, confused. Then Mason did something no one expected. He spoke not to the beast, but to the makers. Is this all you have? He shouted. You build monsters to see what breaks, but I already broke. There's nothing left for you to test. The golden-eyed beast charged again. This time, Mason ran toward it. They collided like thunder. Mason was thrown, crashing into the dirt, rolling across sharp rocks. Blood stained the sand. He didn't rise. Lissa ran forward, screaming his name. But the first monster, the one who had once bowed, blocked her path. She turned to it. Move! He's going to die. But it shook its head slowly and stepped aside only when she stopped. Then Mason stood. Slowly, shaking, one leg bent wrong, one eye swollen shut. But he stood. The golden-eyed beast roared, loud, angry. And then Mason smiled. You don't understand, he whispered. You can't kill me, because I've already been dead inside. You're just noise now. He lifted a hand and pointed, not at the monster. At the makers. You're the ones who fear me, he said, because I'm not controlled, not programmed. I see through you. And that's what truly scares you. The monster froze. For the first time, it hesitated. Lissa stared, stunned. She finally understood. Mason wasn't a fighter. He was a mirror. He made monsters see themselves. And they couldn't bear it. Then something happened. The golden-eyed creature dropped its head. Not fully, just a twitch. But enough. It didn't bow. But it paused. It blinked. And Mason, broken and bleeding, stared at it without fear. The makers began to shift. The leader stepped forward. "This is impossible," it said. The apex was not meant to hesitate. Mason turned to them. "Gave it instincts, you gave it rage, but not will. And now it's tasted something it never knew before." The golden-eyed monster growled but didn't attack. Lissa walked beside Mason and took his arm. "We need to get you out of here." He nodded, finally letting himself lean on her. Behind them, the first monster stepped forward, standing beside its golden brother. The two monsters stared at each other. No growls. No attacks. Just understanding. And then, together, they turned away from the makers. The tall figures hissed with static. "You will regret this," the leader said. "You have disturbed the balance." Mason looked over his shoulder. "No," he whispered. "I am the balance." The monsters followed behind him. The army watched in silence, and Lissa, still holding his arm, looked up at him in wonder. "You didn't win by strength," she said. "You won by enduring." He gave a small nod. And in that moment, even the galaxy seemed to pause. The camp was silent. The golden-eyed monster and the dark-armored once weapons of fear now stood behind Mason like guardians. Their presence no longer brought terror, but something stranger. Hope. The soldiers stared. The officers whispered. Even General Torvik, who once mocked Mason, remained still. No one dared speak. The makers stood at the edge of the broken field, masks glowing, UNMOV. Their leader took one step forward. "You have turned our designs against us. You have broken our trial." Mason, bruised, bloody, but still standing, answered calmly, "Your trial was never meant to be passed." The leader's voice was sharper now. "You think you've won? You are still just a man. Flesh and weakness. You cannot stop what we have already begun." Mason's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll do what flesh does best. I'll endure until your machines fall apart." Lissa stepped beside him, holding her weapon, chin high. "You forget one thing," she said firmly. "Humans don't break the same way your monsters do." The golden-eyed beast made a deep sound in its chest. Not a growl. Something softer. Then it walked forward. The makers twitched. Some stepped back. The monster looked at the leader. And bowed. Not to the makers. To Mason. Lissa gasped. Then the second monster, the original one who had followed Mason since the beginning, lowered its massive body too, and behind them, in the cliffs, shapes began to rise. More beasts, hiding in the dark, climbing down. One by one, they bowed. Dozens. Then hundreds. They were all waking up. Not to fight, but to choose. And they chose the human. The leader of the makers shouted, "This cannot be. You are corrupted. You are imperfect." "No," Mason said, "I'm just human. That's why they follow me." The ground shook. The makers tried to retreat, but the monsters blocked their path. No claws, no violence. Just presence. The kind that couldn't be ignored. The leader hissed, "We will return." "No," Mason said, stepping forward. "You won't." He raised his hand. The golden-eyed monster lowered its head. From the slot in its armor, Mason pulled a device. A small, smooth sphere glowing faintly. The makers recognized it instantly. "No, you wouldn't." "I took it from your trial ship," Mason said. "It connects all your control signals, all your commands." He crushed it in his hand. The light inside blinked once and died. The makers froze. Their connection to the monsters gone, They faded into sparks, their shapes breaking apart like shadows in wind. And then silence.real silence.no commands.no. Fear. Only choice? Lissa turned to Mason, her voice trembling. What now? Mason looked at the creatures. We give them a place. A name, a future. He looked at the sky, and we remember that monsters don't have to stay monsters. Later, when the story spread across the stars, people didn't believe it at first. A man who faced beasts with only his gaze. Aha! Girl who stood beside him without question. A war that ended not with fire but with choice. But on Torvak 7, they built a monument. Not to Mason's strength, but to his silence, and beside it, engraved in alien metal, were the words Lissa once whispered. He didn't win by power. He won because he never looked away. And even now, when young soldiers ask about the monsters, the old ones answer, they still walk, they still follow. But not because they're forced, because once a human looked into their soul and didn't blink.